last weekend, I guess officially started my running season, even though it's only February, which is a hell of a lot earlier than I usually do. So I was actually down in Saudi Arabia doing an obstacle course race. So I actually used to be an obstacle course racer before I kind of focused more on trail running in the past 2 years. So it was really fun to go back and try my hand at a running race with obstacles again and just compete against some of the people that I used to and just see if I could still do it, to be honest. So obstacle racing it's a running race. You run along and you do obstacles along the way. These can vary from swimming, crawling, jumping over things, carrying things, swinging between things, pretty much anything you could imagine. This was going to be a Tough Mudder, which never actually really used to be a race, but this one was definitely going to be a race. There was a big prize pot, so yeah, it was definitely a race. And yeah, down in Saudi Arabia, it's a lot of desert running, so it's going to be sandy. It's going to be a 10-kilometer course, 8 hours, so you have to do as many laps as possible, and you have an extra hour to finish that last lap that you're on. So it was going to be a relatively long run, not too long, but definitely not short. And yeah, it was going to be interesting just to see whether I still had it in me to do this different form of running. I mean, I was going down there mainly for two reasons. One was because I'm doing Western States, I do need to be able to run well in the heat, and this was going to be a hot run, so I was going to be able to do some hotter training and also learn quite a lot about myself and how I react racing in the heat, so I was going to get a lot of good knowledge from that. But then also the prize pot was huge, so I was going to try and win some money as well. It's always nice with some money, and I felt like I still had it in me, so I was going to go and give it a good go. So training for this race should have been a little bit different to usual, and I guess it was, but actually I didn't really train specifically for this race at all. My training has been relatively similar to the years previously, except for the fact I've been doing a bit of extra running through the winter anyway. Normally I'd just be doing a hell of a lot of skiing at this time of year, but I'm trying to run a bit extra just to get myself prepared for Western States. So when I looked at this run, which could be, I was figuring I was going to be doing upwards of 80 kilometers, I figured I'd have to do a tiny bit of specific training just so I'm not completely out of my depth when I get down there. So I did shift 1 week, you can see it here, 1 week to sharpening. Sharpening is very specific training, and I manually changed 1 week to sharpening so I could do some workout specifically for this race. And actually that week coincided for when we took a trip down to Gran Canaria, so I could do some hotter running, could do some sand running, test some gear, and just soak up the heat and try and enjoy some hotter running without knowing that I'm going to be racing in it sort of like immediately. I still had some time to acclimatise and to improve. So that week went really well. I did one really good run on the sand dunes testing all my gear, which was really important. But I also did twist my ankle or foot a bit strangely one day, so that meant the long run, which was really important for me to do, I had planned for the next day, I didn't manage to get done. So that was a bit of a shame, but I did do a longer run when I got home and threw in some burpees whilst I was running, and actually went to a military area nearby and did a few obstacles, which would be my only obstacle practice before heading down to Saudi. So I did that 1 week of sharpening, and I also manually changed the week before the race into a tapering week as well, just so I was extra rested. That seemed to work out best with the travel down there and the time I spent in Dubai before heading over to AlUla in Saudi for the race. So I manually changed those 2 weeks. And the other thing I did more specifically, but this again was with Western in mind, was some heat training sessions. And I've never actually done specific heat training sessions, but I got myself one of these core body temperature sensors, which estimates your internal temperature. And then the idea is you try and raise that temperature to a certain level and then work out for a certain amount of time in that heat training zone, they call it. So I try to do 2 to 3 of those workouts per week for the 3 or 4 weeks before the event, and actually it was really interesting. I got some good data, I learned a lot about myself, and I do think it did make a difference come race day, but the race was a lot cooler than I expected, which I am still glad for. Even though I missed out on that data and that learning I was hoping for Western, it was nice that it wasn't as hot as it could have been. So pacing this race, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I just started, got on with it and could see. The first hour was going to be obstacle free, so we could run past all the obstacles, which was kind of nice because running is one of my strengths. I settled in and started chatting to Ryan Atkins, who's an old friend. We've raced each other many times, just kind of caught up for that first half an hour. But at some point quite early, I just started drifting ahead, and then that was it. I didn't look back. I did keep glancing at my heart rate, and that's what I was going to be using to try and judge as to whether I was, not overcooking myself. So I was happy to see that the running I was doing was low to mid zone 2. So I knew I could manage the entire course, engine-wise at least, at that effort level. So then I kind of figured I'll try not to go up into zone 3, and that'll be good for me, especially in the first half. And if everything's good and I'm still winning, then I'll just keep that going through to the end. If not, then I'd start trying to push it a lot harder and forget about the heart rate and just try and empty the tank. So thankfully it went as expected, I guess, in a sense that I knew I was fit enough. What didn't go so well was my legs stiffened up really early. I definitely don't think they were really ready for the distance, so I ran 100 kilometers in the end. The sand, because it's very different for your legs running in sand, and also the obstacles, especially the impact of the obstacles. I did a lot of jumping off things, which is quite a lot of pounding for your legs. So those three things really meant my legs stiffened up really quite early. The right hamstring after only 20 kilometers, the left after only 30 or so, and then the quads and everything else shortly after that. So I kind of felt like I was running like a duck for a lot of the race, but kept my head down, tried to just keep running smoothly. I got no timing gaps pretty much throughout, but I knew I was still in the lead, so just kind of started churning out the laps and kept that going through to the end. So the course was mostly a mix of hard sand and soft sand. I'm thinking that's probably the most challenging thing, is running on the sand. There wasn't any uphills or downhills, so you've got the same running stride on sand for 8 hours, which is pretty tough for the legs. There were 20 obstacles in the course, some water obstacles, some crawling obstacles, only one hanging obstacle actually, which was some rings we had to swing between. The one obstacle that I was wondering as to whether I might fail, because it's very easy to fail, was the balance beam, but I managed to get that done easily, even when the wind picked up a lot. So the course was challenging in its own way, because it did just grind you down, and it's just not very nice. Just keep getting on your knees and crawling under things and jumping off things for this amount of time. So at the moment I'm actually feeling, I've just got home yesterday and I'm already feeling like I slept really well, I'm happy, I feel healthy, I'm eating well. I actually generally feel like I want to train, so these are all good signals. So I've already done a recovery bike session this morning, felt like I could have gone for longer, felt like the effort was relatively easy, so it's all good signs at the moment that the race didn't take too much out of me and I can get back to good training relatively quickly, but I still do feel exceptionally stiff in the legs, so I'm going to be doing some stretching and some rolling, monitoring things on that side. If I do get any twinges or niggles here and there, I'll take them very seriously this week, and generally just take it day as it comes. If I have a low period, I'll just take a day off and concentrate on more recovery. But at the moment I'm feeling relatively happy, healthy and ready to get cracking again, and that's great, but also a little bit dangerous, so I'll be trying to be conservative as well. So this week I have some of the similar sort of base building type sessions planned in. That means there's really nothing over threshold, so nothing really that hard, but there are some workouts in there which can be classed as relatively hard or happy hard. So I've moved those to the back end of the week to allow myself extra time to recover, and move some of the recovery workouts to early in the week, so I just have enough time to really get a gauge as to whether I can manage those those workouts. Yeah, mostly I might actually do those workouts cross-training as well. So it's just really important for me to not take any big risks, because I've still got a long time to train through to Western. I don't need to get back into things too quickly. I just need to sort of get back into them in a healthy manner, so that means I can keep the momentum going.